Yes, yes, yes. I got something to talk about. Let's talk. I want to welcome you today to Final Friday, where we focus on mental health, mental wellness, and mental illness, giving voice, education, and support at every level. Today on the show, my story is with AnDrewice Owens of Cleveland, Ohio. How you doing, AnDrewice?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. And we're going to hear her journey, her story. Let me just tell you just a little bit about AnDrewice. She is a mental health survivor, and she's a certified peer support through
SAMSA.
AnDrewice, tell the listeners, what is a mental health survivor?
Through my words, a mental health survivor is a person who's dealing with a diagnosis, but yet is still living a healthy life by taking care and full responsibility of your mental health issues, so you can be prosperous in life, because sometimes it's pretty hectic and it gets pretty hard when you are diagnosed with a mental illness. So I would say that that's why I called it my journey, my story, because it's an ongoing journey. It never stops. It never stops. And my story is I am able at this point in time to live a healthy life. And through this interview, I guess I'll explain how that happened.
Great. And a certified peer support, what is that defined as?
A certified peer support is basically a person who is going through mental health themselves, that's in a healthy state where they're able to help others, teaching them coping skills, or, offering support and resources to people with mental health as well. And just being part of their support system, basically.
And when you say certified, does that mean that you have went through training then?
Yes, it does. I was actually amongst the first ones in Ohio that was picked to do the training years back, and that was through the Ohio Empowerment Coalition. Now it's through SAMSA.
And SAMSA is what?
SAMSA is Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration.
All right.
They're all linked with NAMI, SAMSA, and a few other ones, but they're all linked together. It's all dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Let's start in then. Where do we start? Let's start with, do you have a mental health diagnosis?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. I was diagnosed at the age of 21 with bipolar and schizophrenia, and that was back then. It was embarrassing, so to speak, and people made fun of people with mental health. So I suffered alone a lot when I first was diagnosed. I didn't want to tell anybody. I was going through these changes. I didn't quite understand them, and people thought I was crazy and things of that nature. But yeah, I was diagnosed 21 years of age, and it's been quite a journey since then.
What happened at 21? Because what I remember at 21, which I got to go back a long time, but what I remember at 21 is that I was self-consumed. I was consumed about everything about Gena and very sensitive. But what happened at 21 that you were able to even receive a diagnosis?
I was going through these changes. My family was noticing. My mom was paying attention to certain behaviors that I had, and she suggested that I go for counseling, and that is how I became diagnosed. I remember, though, it was a very dark time for me because, like I said, I went through a lot of it alone, and I was embarrassed about it, and so it was just very dark for me at that point in time. And back then, it wasn't like a lot of support. Like, we have a lot of programs now for people with mental health, and we're taking a stand for ourselves.
Yes.
And it's different now, but back then it was considered, embarrassing, and it was something that you were supposed to feel ashamed of or be hush-hush about, and so it was hard.
How did you come face to face with accepting that diagnosis?
Oh, boy, that's a good one. I just, to be honest with you, it started with I was in a relationship with a guy that I really, really cared about. And I'm going through these changes. I'm trying to hide my mental illness. I'm not being responsible, so I'm not taking my medication as such. And it finally cost me the relationship, and I really cared about him. And at that point in time, I had to wake up, you know, and it was hard because it's like I had to face that, like, come on now, you can't keep playing with this. Your family is looking at you a certain way. You're losing friends and jobs, and now you've lost this guy that you really care about, and it's based on you being irresponsible and not accepting the fact that you have a mental illness. And that is the first time that I really became face-to-face with it. And I just remember I was crying, and I'm like, oh my God, and he's going to think I'm crazy now, and everybody's going to know. And I was just so hurt and in so much pain. But I came face-to-face with it. I said, you know what? If I'm going to conquer this and try to live a healthy life, I've got to look at me. I've got to look at what I'm doing. And I've got to face this. That's the only way that you're going to be able to get some form of self-control. Otherwise, it can take you over if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, knowing that you have a mental health issue.
Just talked about what happens when you don't accept it. It can actually take you over.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If you don't accept it and you don't get the help and the support that you need, if you don't speak up and speak out for yourself, it will consume you. You will find yourself trapped in this box. And that's what anybody that's dealing with an illness, if you don't face it, if you don't take control over your own recovery, you're going to be in trouble. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So I started this series on Final Friday, and it has been a very fascinating journey. And one of the things I just love about you, and I thank you so much, is because you are young, you are Black, and you are stepping out to share your journey and your story. You are the first, I say Black because I am proud to say I'm a Black woman.
Right.
Several people on, but you are the first Black person that I have had on who has stepped into this journey. And I know why, because number one, in the Black community, we're still at a place of hush hush. But we're getting so much better. I've had therapists and a doctor who are Black, but you are the first person who has actually stepped out. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And so I want you to talk to me about, or the audience about, being Black and being bipolar.
That is one of the main things I actually really did want to discuss today, because it's going to get a little deep here.
Go ahead.
First of all, the fact that we are Black women, sometimes we are looked at as sometimes aggressive, sometimes, outspoken, or whether they may say attitude, so to speak, or, things of that nature. We already kind of like viewed as that. I've noticed that in the workplaces as well as in relationships is what they look at us as. And when you're dealing with mental health, that just puts the icing on the cake. Everything is just, you're just crazy, you're just this and you're just that. And a lot of times it's really not that. Even what I've realized, even when you're on your medication, even when you think you're all the way there and you're not having these symptoms, they still can break through even when you're on a medication. And when it does that, it's really just our mental health that we're dealing with. It's not the fact that we're mean. It's not the fact that we're aggressive or angry. And then, now check this out though. Even with the medications, a lot of people are irresponsible about the side effects of them. Some of the side effects of this medication makes you either extremely tired, it does make you aggressive, and then what I've come to find out is some of them also increase suicidal tendencies. Those are some of the side effects. If you read your side effects from your medications, from psych meds, those are a few of the side effects. So once again, with the odds already being against us, we're still dealing with this issue here, and it's all to them just a part of a Black woman with a bad attitude. You understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for a person who doesn't know about mental health, and then on top of that, you don't just walk up into a job or fill out an application and say, hey, I'm mental health. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So you kind of try to keep that to yourself so you're not labeled, but at the same time, I mean, it's hard.
So how do you...
it's hard. It's hard being diagnosed and being Black. It's hard.
So how do you deal with that?
How I deal with it is, like I said again, this journey for anybody, this journey is not us. It's not about us. This journey is not about me and my family helping me go through my coping skills. It's not about that. The journey when you have a mental illness, the journey is with you and within yourself and whatever your higher creation is or whatever you believe in, but it's still your personal journey. And how you deal with that is, like I said, taking full responsibility of your illness, and your recovery is your thing. So what I realized I had to do, once again, when they give us our medications, we have to read the side effects.
Right.
We have to know what we're dealing with. When I was able to identify certain medications, reactions making me feel a certain type of way, I could either speak up to tell my doctor about the side effects, and maybe he can give me something else that doesn't make me feel that way or react that way. And I also realized what my triggers were, so I could kind of stop myself. So if I'm having an episode, or I feel like, because I got a little joke about it, even with my family. I'd be like, it's kicking in. It's been kicked in, so please forgive me. It's been kicked in for a second, so forgive me. But I know this now. You understand? Because I'm paying attention to me. I'm paying attention to my medications, my situations, and I'm able to control that now. That's how I can keep a job 2, 3, 4, going on 45 years now, because I'm in control of it now.
You realize it is your recovery.
It's your recovery, and you got your outsiders. Yes, you need support. Yes, you wish somebody understand. Yes, you may have your best friend or your sister side by side, but it is still your personal journey.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
At the end of the day.
Thank you. Well, let's talk about the medication. What was the journey with the medication? Did you start out with this medication that you took? Was that a fit for you, or did you have to find the medication that fit with you?
That's a good question. I had to, it was a little of both, because like I said, when you're first going into this journey, you don't know what's going on. Whatever they give you, you're thinking, okay, this is about to fix me, and I felt like that for a long time. And I also thought that I had to deal with these certain side effects, and that was that. It wasn't until, like I said, I took it personal. I started asking questions. I also did my own research. I Googled things. I looked up stuff, because I had to get deep off into this to see how I could live a good life still dealing with this situation. So what I come to find out with myself is some of the medications will fix the initial mental health issue, but it's the side effect that comes right back behind that and kicks you up the butt, and you're still like, oh my God, this pill helped me go to sleep finally, but when I wake up, my body's aching and I'm angry and aggressive. Or some people have found the medication that calms them down, keeps them kind of mellow and level, but they appear to be high. I've seen them at my job, some of the consumers, and I'm like, are you okay? They're nodding off, and I'm thinking, no, you're over-medicated, And so you have to speak up for these types of things. So, yes, sometimes, depending on what your illness is, the first initial medication they give you just might be fine. But there are other times where you have to speak up. This medication is too strong for me. It has me feeling high. I can't function. Or when I wake up, my bones are aching. Or you have to speak up about these side effects and what you're experiencing, so you can make sure that you're on the right meds. And I want to add this really quickly, too.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, they also have a medication that helps relieve some of the side effects. So you have to speak up about that. Sometimes they don't just give it to you. And if you're not telling them something's wrong, then they don't know.
And has it always been easy to talk to the service provider? Has it always been easy to talk to the doctor or to the nurse to say, hey, I don't think this is working for me?
Not at all. I worked in the center for almost going on 4 years. All of the consumers were mental health, the entire staff, and I will tell you, that is one of the biggest issues that they had. They needed someone to advocate for them, and that is where peer support also comes in at. But because, like I told you, we were new to this, starting a few years back, these peer support specialists, and the doctors and counselors had a problem with that. They had a problem with us intervening and saying, hey, the consumers here saying, the medication has them a certain type of way, this and that. But what they didn't understand was that was our new position. We're allowed to do that. It's called like a home team, where you are supposed to be now peer support in cahoots with the doctors and the counselors. We're able to speak on their behalf. That's part of what peer support is as well, because it was not easy for them to go in there. Some of them were passive aggressive. Some of them were basically like pushovers. They just let anybody give them anything, dope them up and send them on their way, and they did not know how to speak for themselves.
Or when they spoke up for themselves.
It was, I am the doctor, I know best, basically, and out of my office sort of thing.
Thank you so much. You know what I wanted to share is that mental health or mental illness stretches across cultural lines, stretches across race and gender and socioeconomic lines. Mental health and mental illness is a very serious thing. So I really appreciate you taking this time to talk with me. Let's talk about your recovery and living health. How do you, I think I kind of know, but I want you to speak to that. How do you live a healthy life now?
It's like I said, it's an ongoing journey, honey. It never stops. It never ends. You're constantly learning new things. You get to a point where your medication now doesn't do what it's supposed to do because you've been on it so long. So now you get starting to wear off. So you got to try to find something else that works with you. Then you have to balance everything out. You know you're going through these issues, but at the same time, like I said, the battle is yours. Once you realize, first off, let me say this. First of all, not trying to be funny, but almost everybody in this world probably got mental health.
Yes.
Okay? Somebody's depressed. Somebody is, you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yes, I do.
And people are going through these things. They're just not diagnosed. Okay? So mental health is not this thing like we're stuck over here, we're the monsters, we're crazy. It's not about that. And you have to understand that, hey, I got a mental health issue, and so what? I'm going to deal with it the best that I can.
I have to say this, that I interviewed Dr. Sarah Vincent a couple weeks ago, who is a forensic psychiatrist. And that is one of the things that she said, is that all of us are just one situation away from a mental health issue. That's powerful. One situation. Lose your job and you'll see what happens. Lose a relationship. You'll see. Lose a family member unexpectedly, and you'll see that we're just all, because the scope of mental health and mental illness is very broad. So I love that. How do you live? Talk about some mental health and healthy relationships. Now that you know who you are, how do you account for that? How do you live in healthy relationships?
Now I know. And since I've taken responsibility, we're going to leave the medication side of it alone. I'm taking my meds. I'm being responsible in that area. I know my triggers. I'm using my resources and coping skills. I've set up my support team of just a few people who I know, cares to, help me, through this journey. And I'm living happy now. And on top of that, I don't know. Some people have, a higher power that they reach out to, whether it's God, Allah, I don't care what you call it or what, I'm saying, but you reach out and you get some type of inner peace with yourself, and you just become aware of what's going on, responsible for what's going on, and be done with it. And don't let it control you. You have the right to control it. And what I do know is we are in control of our own minds and our own thinking. I don't care what you label it as. I don't care what you call it. I've seen some girls at the center that were schizophrenic. They would talk to them people and tell them, leave me alone. And they'd be all right for the rest of the day, which means that you made a subconscious decision not to hear it no more. Okay?
Yes.
You got to let go of that negative thinking in your mind when it does occur, when it rears its ugly head. Oh, here we go again. So no, you can't do that. You got to get rid of that stinking thinking, okay? And you got to stay positive and stay around positive people.
Absolutely.
And that's just it at the end of the day. That's how I stay happy, being responsible, taking charge, and making decisions to be happy, and getting rid of that negative thinking. It's quite possible to live a very healthy life.
For those who are suffering in silence, or what do you suggest people do to reach out?
There is only one thing that a person in silence could do to save themselves, and that is to speak out. You have to tell someone what's going on. Like I said, in Cleveland, Ohio, there's a line. You call 3 numbers, 211, first call for help. That's it. You get on that phone and you ask them, where can I go for counseling? Where can I go? Is there any mental health centers in my area, this zip code? And they'll have your pen and your paper ready. They'll give you a list of places where you can go, but you have to grow. You have to get the courage to speak out. Right. You can't suffer in silence. It will kill you. That's how most of the people become, even including myself. I was suicidal at one point in time because I was suffering alone. Okay? You can't do that. You have to reach out, even though it's your journey, but that's part of your journey. Reaching out and saying, hey, I need some help. I can't do this alone. Mm-hmm. Too many people have suffered. I see it every day up and down my timeline. Rest in peace. These are kids. These are young teens that's killing themselves because they're not speaking out. And then you have a family member saying, well, nobody knew. Nobody understood. You know what I'm saying? Nobody knew what was going on. Or sometimes if you do speak out and you realize that you're not getting what you need from speaking out, then you have to speak out to somebody else. Or, like I said, just find you somewhere to go, a center that you can connect with and get you some help, because suffering in silence will kill you. It will consume you. It will consume you.
How do you find...
I suffered for a real long time.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to tell you, I was so angry and so hurt and so confused, and I didn't want to tell. It makes you feel weak when you have to tell somebody, hey, look, this is really, my mind this is like taking control. People don't want that burden, It's really sad. People don't want to hear it. But you got to reach out to the right people.
Keep reaching.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep.
You have a poem that you talked about that you wrote. Do you have that right there ready?
Yes, I do.
Can you read it?
Yeah, because actually it is doing with suicide. I wrote a poem book that I'm working on getting published. But it's funny that you say that, because I was looking at the one poem, the suicide, and this is where I was in a very dark place, and it's called Suicide.
Okay.
And I said, never really understood why the end of life intrigued me. And born like a curse, took it for what it was worth. Birth had deceived me. I believed if death wanted to visit you, you should welcome him with open arms. If destruction of oneself is challenging sanity, answer quickly if you don't want the spirit to be alarmed. So, the essential part of me, I knew deserved an appreciative mind. Charged me with taking life for granted, guilty, like so many others of my kind. Body, contaminated flesh, tainted by memory, sex, murder, maybe drugs. Die, I cried eternally. Suicide calls frequently. Should I let go, spill my own hunted blood? Relinquish self-love? I just might answer the next time suicide calls. And it was crazy. That's where I was at.
It sounds very healing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's just what it is. It's like, I understand what people are going through. And I remember, too, just to say this real quick, I was so angry with God. I was like, why me? And I kept telling my mother, why am I experiencing these things? Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have mental health? Why do I have suicide? Why me? And my mother said, at the end of the day, he gives his battles to the strongest soldiers, and you're going through this for a reason. You're going to get through this, and somebody is going to hear you. You're going to heal someone. You're going to be able to heal someone, and that's why I went into the peer support, because it was right up my alley. I've been there, done that, and if you listen to me, I can help you get where I'm at.
That's amazing.
It's a pretty deep journey.
So the SAMSA, as a peer support person, you are that outside support that people who are dealing with it can actually reach out to through SAMSA.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What about families? Can family members reach out to SAMSA as well?
I don't think they would reach out to SAMSA. I think they would reach out to, let me say that. If they reached out to SAMSA, then yes, then they would definitely be able to direct them in the right place. And then the family can become involved if the person that they're trying to get help for wants them to. SAMSA could definitely direct you to some mental health facilities that help. There's some really good programs, there are some really good Meredith Taylor has a pretty good program. You've got Meredith Taylor. You've got, I think NAMI may have some things going on for people with mental health, SAMSA. And then, what is the other one? Oh, listen, the Life Exchange Center. All you got to do is look it up. It's on Kinsman, right across from Meredith Taylor. Beautiful program. Beautiful program. I worked there for almost 4 years, and it's a beautiful place to be. It's a beautiful program. It's called the Life Exchange Center. It's located on 134th and Kinsman Road.
In Cleveland,
and it's
Ohio.
A beautiful place to go. Cleveland, Ohio. I'm sorry. Yeah. 44120.
So those places, SAMSA is nationwide, though, right? Is that correct? And so is NAMI. So to find providers and help in your own city where you live, those would be contacts. SAMSA, SAMSHA, and NAMI is spelled
NAMI.
Okay, and those are nationwide. Anything else that you would like to share that we did not cover? Oh, wait a second. Let me back up. There is one thing. So, it's what I've noticed is it's always easier when you talk to someone, when there are supports that look like you. Was that a challenge for you when you started? Were there Black women or Black men that you could connect to, or when you started this journey?
I'll tell you this. For me, it wasn't. Okay. For me, it happened to God just put me, I guess, in the right places in front of the right people. It didn't matter if they was Hispanic, Indian, Black, white. They had a true passion for people with mental health and to help them. I could feel that, and so that part wasn't so much for me. But working at the center where it was diverse and there were different races of peer support, and I realized then the issue, because it was like some of the people who were in the program that wouldn't identify with the other peer supports. It was of a different race. So I end up trying to be the mediator between, to bring them together, to invite them into my groups. I was facilitating, introduce them, because I realized it was a separation. So yes, I think for some it is. It wasn't for me.
It's more of the heart of the person, and you said that's really important, that you can feel the heart of the person.
Oh yeah. And I'll tell you this, let me say this real briefly. People look at us with mental health, and sometimes they call us crazy or think that we don't know things. And I found out while working with them and being mental health myself, it's a lot of things that we know, and a lot of us pick up on a lot of things, and we're not stupid and we're not crazy. We know if you care or not. Good. We know.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Have we left anything out?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
I'm going to give you the final thought then. AnDrewice?
Final thought is this. Mental health is just what it is, mental health. We don't have to be labeled by it. We don't have to live by it. It is our journey. It's our own personal journey. Take hold of it. Take control of it. Do what it is that you're supposed to do. Be responsible. Speak up if something is wrong. If you need to change medication, speak out. Find you a support group and live your healthy life. Don't forget about your coping skills and your triggers, because those triggers work the same way it does if it was a substance abuse issue. Oh, and let me say this too. There are people who are dual diagnosed, which is mental health plus substance abuse and alcoholism issues. And if you are both, you have to treat both of them at the same time. They will trigger off of each other. You cannot go take care of your mental health and still drink alcohol and do drugs. It's going to trigger. Your medication is not going to be effective. If you're dual diagnosis now, they're telling you now the rule is to do them both at the same time. You got to get in some AA, you got to stop the drinking and drugging, and you got to take care of your mental health, but you got to do them both at the same time, because they're just going to keep triggering back and forth off each other. That is my final thought.
Thank you so much. I love you, lady.
You're welcome.
You are listening to Speak Now